Everyone to stand for the moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Broad.
Here.
Palazzo.
Here.
Bowser.
Here.
Ford. Brick. Harry.
Kratza, Lancaster,
Here.
Noel, Smith,
Here.
Steelman, Taylor.
Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I don't need any executive session, so unless somebody else does.
And I guess in a sense, there's a change in it. We will not have an executive session. All right, this is the time. Oh, no, after we do this, excuse me. You have in your packet the minutes of the August council meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Is there a motion to approve? Second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have the minutes of the August work session.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion of those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And you have the July financial report. Is there a motion to approve that?
Move to approve.
Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now we come time for public comment. And as is our new policy, I call people in the order in which they signed up. And if when you sit at the table, start the timer. Jeremy? For you.
I know, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Hello, my name is
Jimmy Garlina, and I have a couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention today, and I'm gonna ask you guys a couple questions. Is Indiana handicap accessible? Yay, nay, or no comment from anybody? Is Indiana handicap accessible? Sidewalks handicap accessible? Are they all smooth? Do they all have, or are they all bumpy and look like crap? For people in wheelchairs, it's hard to and everything.
It is our policy not to comment on.
All right, fine. Then I'll just make things.
I'll have the public works staff.
Meetings, you can have that all addressed. And that meeting is when?
Are you guys, I just want to know, are you guys talking about handicap activities for in the town for people who are handicapped who can't get to other places? You should bring that to you guys too. And cops, when they're not on the clock or on a call, or when they're not on a call, they should put money in the meter. They are citizens just like all of us, and they don't have to sit there and just take up spaces without putting money in. If they're on, they have the lights on and they're on a call, you don't have to put money in. But if they're going to eat at a restaurant in town or something, they should put money in the meter because they're no better than any of us We elect them, we pay their payroll, and they better start being citizens or this whole town's gonna get effed over by the cops because they're all assholes. Oh, and the sidewalks in town, they're all crap past like 10th Street. They're all uneven, all have cracks and grass and everything in them. And how is that supposed to be good for handicapped people? They're all crap past 11th Street. You guys should care more about the entire town than just Philadelphia Street for handicapped people because when you're not doing it for the entire town, you're being discriminatory and against the people who live outside of town. And thank you for coming late. Seconds, I just want to say, yeah, police officers should start acting like regular citizens because we pay their paychecks. And that's all I have time for because you guys don't care what I want to say, so.
Your question, Jeremy, your questions about handicap access are largely dealt with Public Works, and we meet the fourth Monday of the month. And you're welcome to come. Overall, we strive to meet all ADA requirements and would love to hear feedback when the sidewalks don't. We're putting a lot of money and time right now into doing that, and so would love to hear when we're
Going up in no place for people in wheelchairs and everything go up. Like, you guys aren't doing anything for business on Philadelphia Street for handicapped people.
ADA is no joke, and we take it very seriously, and we'd love to hear from you. That's Monday, the last Monday of this month. It's going to be the 28th, 7 p.m. here. Nope, I'm sorry. That's 25th, the 25th. Yeah, it's always the fourth Monday of the month, and so this month it's the 25th, 7 p.m. here. Public Works.
That's in this room.
It's right here.
Yes, I thank you for throwing that out there. I'm sorry for it, but when I became disabled, I saw that you guys are always like, oh, Lord, but you're like 12% handicap accessible for every place for like the entire street is like 12% handicap accessible, which is bull crap when you say we're handicap friendly, but you aren't. You guys are just telling lies to get folks in.
Thank you.
That's bull crap.
Thank you.
Come to Public Works, we can have a discussion. You're not limited to 3 minutes there. All right.
I broke the rule.
Am I right?
Yes,
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. It was my bad.
and just go, Emma, just, yeah.
Saying that, but then they keep having to touch it.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak, even though this is public comment. You really don't have a say so in it, I guess. But my name is Anne Marie Everett, and I'm here to introduce myself as candidate for magisterial district judge. So I just wanted to introduce myself and give you a little background about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Indiana, and this community means everything to me. I've had the privilege of attending Indiana High School, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and went on to Duquesne Law School. Over the years, I've grown not only as an individual, but also as a legal professional, all while raising my 2 children here in Indiana, Kirian and Logan, along with my husband, Michael Everett. I've resided in the Indiana Borough for the last 20 years. We moved back to Indiana here after a brief time living in the state of New York. My husband worked for IBM. We moved there after college and then made the decision to move specifically back here to Indiana Borough. And we've been here for 20 years. I also the other reason why we moved back here was so I could attend law school. I started law school in 2006 when I was 35 years old. My kids were still in school and I commuted back and forth every day, going to evening classes and worked during the day while I did that. And I graduated from law school in 2010. And I started my career here as an attorney with Boot, Ash & Welsh. The past 13 years, I've been deeply committed to the practice of law. I served as a public defender for Indiana County for over 5 years. I've worked tirelessly to ensure that every individual receives fair and just representation and I've taken on complex trials, criminal trials, including homicide trials. I've handled numerous custody hearings, mediations, and custody trials. I've represented plaintiffs who are victims of domestic violence, advocating for their rights, and my extensive experience also spans real estate closing, civil litigation, landlord-tenant cases, and more. All of the specific types of cases that are going to come before the magisterial district judge. I'm also a delegate to the Pennsylvania Bar Association for Indiana County. I've actively participated in shaping our legal community through the Bar Association. My involvement in organizations such as Rotary of Indiana Midday, United Way of Indiana, and Downtown Indiana reflect my commitment to the welfare of our community. This commitment extends to my role on the IEP Athletics Advancement Council and as a pro bono attorney for PFA plaintiffs. I sit here instead of standing here, but I sit here seeking this opportunity to serve my community as magisterial district judge. I believe that my diverse experience and dedication to fairness and integrity will allow me to make informed and just decisions from the bench. From setting bail to issuing search warrants, preliminary hearings to landlord-tenant disputes, I am prepared to navigate the intricacies of the cases that come before me as district judge. I have some information about me too, so. That's all. Does anybody have any questions?
Into committee reports, since we don't need an executive session.
Or a motion for the 2024 minimum municipal obligation. I'd like to move to authorize the borough manager to execute the 2024 minimum municipal obligation MMO and to direct the borough manager to budget $399,900 as both an expenditure and revenue in the 2024 budget.
Committee?
Question. Okay, 399, and then the paperwork states 362 estimated. Is that 37 left over for emergency use?
No, that's the different. We have,
Is that allotted
three
for
different
something?
yeah, it's a different thing. So, I'm sorry, it just comes out of a different pocket of the pension fund. Are you looking at the MMO out of the? But scroll over, like you have to add those two together. And the 37. Goes with that, and that comes out to the 399.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? Comments? We need a roll call on this.
I would. You're spending money.
We're spending money.
Rod.
Yes.
Alonso. Yes. Bowser.
Yes.
Ward. Rick. Yes. Eric.
Yes.
Cole. Smith.
Yes.
Gilman. Taylor. Yes. 9 yes.
Okay. Community development. Who's speaking for community development?
I will try if either my computer or my phone would load. I didn't see the email from Josh until just a little while ago, so I have a blank screen on one and a blank screen on the other. So I don't have much to offer at the moment. There we go. Thank you, Ben.
Thing, not the two of the report. Oh, okay, good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, bear with me one real quick. So we didn't have a whole lot going on. Sam from Downtown Indiana came and talked about the festivities for the holidays. There's gonna be, I think he said stuff every Friday and I think they're not doing stuff on Sunday this year. But Friday night and Saturday night for the Christmas season. They're trying to have something every Friday night and Saturday night, I think is what he said. So that sounded kind of cool. I realize it's not really Christmas yet, but when it's time to plan for stuff, you know. There are. You gotta bear with me.
Variance was granted for the Parks Department. Variance for the projected Parks Department was granted.
You gotta remind me, I'm sorry.
We went to the zoning board and for the variance for the Parks Department for 1190 School Street.
Here it is.
Good.
And the grant application was submitted for that.
Yeah, sidewalks are progressing nicely. There was talk of expanding. Like, because they focused originally on the, active transportation, that's what's called. The active transportation routes. And they're getting really, really good feedback. A lot of people are taking action on those letters. I don't think they said they had hardly any tell them no or anything like that. Very few even needed a second reminder. People are just really stepping up. Yeah. Yeah, and so there's talk of now trying to get some of the outside of the active transportation plan going. An example, you know, could be, well, he's not here anymore, but like some of those areas that he was talking about might be a great example. Also, I brought up School Street that specific time. I know there's talk of trying to figure out what to do with like the paving sidewalks, because a lot of those are screwed up from the trees, and so there's a lot of back and forth there. What came first, the chicken or the egg, right? The tree or the sidewalk? What's gonna?
It's the sidewalk has got to be there. Yeah, but I just, if I could just interject a little bit, I think what Jeremy said is totally correct. And we should be really mindful of the ADA and make sure that, you know, if I don't remember, I know I've been told, but I don't remember how the active transportation plan figured out sort of where those priorities were. I hope handicap accessibility was one of the priorities. If not, this program is going really well. Previously, we've used Marcellus Shale money for kind of handicap accessible things. We've got about $50,000 sitting in that account that's sort of not doing much. So I'm just
For handicap accessibility?
earmarked it previously, like 6 years ago. I've been here for a long time.
Well, there's also potentially extra, I don't want to call it extra, there's potentially leftover, whatever the right word is. From the tree grades. The tree grades are not going to cost what that fund had in it either. In fact, they're significantly cheaper. I can't remember if you announced the price of them last time, but it's like
$800, like a little under 800, under 800 compared to South.
It was a lot.
some sum of money left over there as well. So
I think Jeremy's concerns are totally valid, and we should be very conscious of the ADA, because if, you know, somebody says this doesn't ADA compliant, we'll lose that at every time. We'll have to fix it every time. ADA is no joke. So we have somebody's watching that. We should be watching it too.
it takes time to fix these things. I mean, realistically speaking, which isn't a great answer. I do believe he lives that direction, which is probably why he walks that way. So it's probably a little bit more center of mind for him. And it's certainly not bad points. If those sidewalks are trash, then we should address them.
How does
I mean-
ADA, I mean, so the sidewalks are owned by the individuals or maintained by the individuals. How does the ADA apply?
Well, maybe they don't.
A commercial building, or if we are making changes. You know, like where you'll see it, like up at, and I might be off a block. Is it 12th Street where they were doing some work? They put in the new curbs in the corners.
Yeah.
Was it 12th and Philly, 13th and Philly?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think they did both actually, 12th and 13th. But because PennDOT was putting in new road and new curbing, they were required to make those ADA accessible. And you'll see they put in the new, you know, the non-slip roadways, took it down almost to the road level. When you make those changes,
Right.
Businesses, and this is where Jeremy got frustrated with the businesses. Well, if a business is already in existence and they make no structural changes, they're not required to become ADA compliant.
Right.
Would it be
Okay.
good business to do so? Probably, but some of the old buildings, it's just not feasible.
Right.
So, you know, and it doesn't really fall on us to enforce that. I mean, there's the whole, any time a building plan gets submitted, it has to be approved through that process.
Well, I mean, realistically speaking, though, proper sidewalks done to the code. Now, I don't know about like curbs and getting on and off roads and things, but the sidewalks themselves, I would imagine would fall under basic ADA compliance, right? Smooth, without cracks, without gaps, without,
Right.
I don't know if you could cite them for ADA, but I think our code would. Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
So, yeah, if we, I mean, to your point, we want to make the borough as accessible as possible. I think, and then I mean, ADA or not, that's Jeremy's point. And so I think that's what we're working towards. And you asked about the active transportation plan. That was the highlighted routes in that we're connecting major nodes as well as the mostly bus route, like bus stops and stuff, is what it was designed for. But because it connects the major nodes and where the buses stop, it does tend to be core centered rather than peripheral centered. So, or that's the thing.
An opportunity if there's funding to sort of do another sort of look, thinking, you know, because it's been a successful program, and if we can.
I will say that I've had two separate people in the past week compliment the borough on what we've been doing with the sidewalks.
Dude, sidewalks are being made everywhere.
Everywhere, all over the place, you see them, even the borough.
Yeah, we are.
They're doing right now. I heard the jackhammering all morning. South Seventh is another one that's getting done.
So,
Yeah, you see it all over. People are taking advantage of whether it's the program or just, I don't know, but there's a lot of sidewalks going in.
And there's still available funds in that program. So if, I mean, what Brenda brought up at the meeting specifically was they focused on the actual transportation. If there's other areas of complaint, bring them up, right? Help guide the specific targeting, if you will, you know. I mean, I brought up School Street, like the 11 and 1200 block of School Street are terrible. I mean, the 11, 1200 block of Church Street have a lot of specific issues, those sorts of things. And, you know, I mean, we're not gonna fix every sidewalk, you know, like that. It takes time, but I mean, there's a lot of progress being made and that's positive.
But hopefully, we might be moving another, if we get the stamp funding for the rewrite of the ordinance, we have that 50,000. That's in the ARP for the ordinance rewrite, but we won't need it if we get the whole amount that we applied for the stamp, then we can move that 50 into sidewalk.
Real good opportunity for like your borough work. Here's a great project to talk about. And if there's more money to, you know, do a bump in the press, hey, seen all these sidewalks, this could be you too. Here's your money, here's your borough work, here's your Biden bucks at work, everyone talk about it.
And into budget season. So as we consider the budget for next year, if we really think this is a good program, we could budget for the program within our actual budget.
Which I don't think is a bad way, a thing to look at. Maybe not necessarily the total dollar, but maybe yes, I don't know, but. Cause when you add up a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of the different places that pool in to make this particular fund.
What's the match that we give for the sidewalks?
It depends on what you're having done, but it's $7 a square foot for replace, and I think $3 or $3.50 per square foot for repairs. It depends on who's doing it, but it can be up to 50% off.
We only reimburse, like, they're doing the whole block, like, some people are just saying, well, like, 700 shop, they only qualified for this much, but he's like, well, I'm not gonna leave this 1 or 2 pads, I'm doing the whole thing. So, yeah.
Mission accomplished. Yeah, it really. Got something right this year, yes.
Use a little bit of it. It's really good.
Public safety.
Yeah, we met on Thursday, August 17th. Oath of office was given to Patrolman Jeremy Adamson. And nice thing had happened where the Borough Police Department was in receipt of funds that came from the joint investigation with the U.S. Postal Service through the Federal Equitable Sharing Program, and the funds that we received total $25,404. Good thing. And just a point of information, 2 officers, we get a lot of people on loan when we do homecoming and other things are happening here. We get police officers from other departments. 2 of our borough police were down at the Knotwood Festival in Blairsville to help their police department with the festival. And let's see, are you going to talk about the going up to the Erie thing? We're invited to present and talk about the canine program we have going on here at the Pennsylvania State Boroughs Association Leadership Conference on October 14th in Erie, Pennsylvania. And Chief Shaw will be there with the officers and their 2 canine dogs, and they're going to talk about what we're doing as a borough. And the mayor will be there talking about what we do as a borough police department, instead of we having comfort dogs, therapy dogs, plus we have the one that's now being certified as a search dog. So it's a good thing. And that's it. I don't have anything else to add.
Any questions for public safety?
The dog is called out to duty. The gentleman that handles him.
Just recently, and we had guests. And it's speaking of sort of like good public relations, people loved the goats. Overall, if you've been into the goats, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. The Vinegar Hill update, because folks have been asking, and I frankly was asking too. We did have folks that came in and generally supported it, and in particular, we're talking, well, what's happening next? Let's make sure we can have native pollinator friendly species, something that can be a real focus point. Kevin Patrick from our planning commission was there, who's been behind our comprehensive plan quite a bit, and reminded us that Vinegar Hill is like the focal point. This is the corridor that we've been trying to build from up at the top of the hill all the way through IUP. And so there are challenges to maintaining it, but we can't just pave it. And it is an important focal point that we want to invest in. And I think the committee agrees to support a sustainable but also low maintenance solution, because as great as the goats are, they're not like a total solution. We're still going to have to get up there. There's those trees of heaven that we're going to have to come down, and that will have to be people physically up there, and they're trying to avoid that as much as possible. And so there's a real balance there. So for right now, the goats have been successful at removing a lot of the invasives, weeds and things, and clearing it up. What they've left largely is the low growth sumac. And a little bit of history on where that came from. That was the intention for that, the stuff that's sort of right along the steps, which has taken up pretty well along the steps, not everywhere. It was supposed to take up everywhere. It just never did. It's pretty effective at doing the thing that we were trying to do, which make it where it is at a cover, it being a ground cover that's doesn't need a whole lot of maintenance, and it looks just fine. It's not super pretty, and however, that low growth sumac will not work in the other places. So for the winter, what's going to be happening, you'll see, is a tarp is going to be placed over that area, and we're going to be our staff has been meeting with landscape architects here in town, landscape engineers and architects here, engineers. I don't know, one of the two.
Question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was the all right. So the update I've got. So the upshot is this will be we'll likely do an RFP for a landscape engineer to actually do a project up there. We've already consulted with a few, and so that will happen over the next several months, and we'll sort of guide that through Public Works. I think that's
Is that the difference from like a landscaper?
landscaper.
Are you referring to a landscaper or a landscape architect?
The landscape architect is somebody with
Well, now, that particular individual may actually have both, but.
To the job. And if they're not, we'll find somebody else who is.
If there was talk about getting landscapers to come in and pitch ideas based on a set of parameters, and then having the architect come in and say, this idea will work, this idea won't work, and then it can get down to basically what idea do you like best of the qualified ideas. And so I was just wanting to make sure to see if that had changed.
Still the plan. That's still roughly the plan.
I
Yes.
just want to make sure
Yeah.
that the verbiage is landscape architects. Anyway.
I screwed it up. Landscapers, I don't know, Freeman.
He's a landscape.
I know, I understand. I should not be flipping.
Yeah, landscape
I apologize.
specific parts of the profession.
They do more broader scopes, like big streetscapes and stuff like that. They design parks and
We get arguments over floodwater and trees.
The other important point that I think our committee right now, I tried to make is that the input from folks in town is important. And folks in town love landscape and love the gardens, and this is going to be a focal point. So we have a lot of real experts in town who know a lot about gardens and do a lot of our public gardening. And I think it's important that we reach out to them early for their input. And so Public Works can be a place for that. And I encourage more folks to come to Public Works and let us know. And I'm hoping staff can actually reach out to like folks at the community garden, right? If we're talking about pollinator species and we don't contact folks at the community garden who have an entire garden that is a pollinator garden that they built over the last 3 years, that would be foolish. And they would let us know afterwards forever. So as a measure of just good practice and also recognize, we want the best ideas, and we're going to get the best ideas whether or not it's before or after the project. I'm hoping staff can really reach out and make a concerted effort to reach out to all our plant heads. So if you know folks who have ideas about what should be there, tell them to come to Public Works and let us know.
Give them the help. Get the mass to help set the basic parameters, and then let the landscapers figure out how it actually can be built.
At some point, we're gonna have an RFP and pay a lands company to do this work, and there's gonna be some final decision that'll be made there. Yeah.
I get that. What I'm saying is, when you get 700 people to come in and say, hey, you should all do this, then you're gonna have 700 different ideas. Take those ideas, whittle them down to a basic outline of what we hope to have, and then let people, not myself, obviously, with the conflict, but such as myself, come in and say, this is how I would actually do it. And then get the architect to say, that person is the one with the best idea. These 3 other ones also work and might be cheaper, right? You get what I'm saying? Because when you get to that point, your landscaper's gonna quit if you keep adding things. You're like, you know what, it wasn't worth it, I'm done. Like,
I completely agree. That needs to be the right process. Absolutely.
that's right. So yeah.
I mean, the parameters are specific. We cannot probably have the same pollinator garden that's out on the community garden, because that probably takes more maintenance. I mean, I don't know. So yeah, right. So yeah. And I said this before, and I think I want to repeat it. We do not want any of our Public Works folks having to regularly rappel, because that's what they have to do. They have to tie on, pull up a truck, because there's nothing to tie off of. They have to pull up a truck and rappel down. That's the only way to do it safely. All y'all are, I'm sure you'll get up there and be like, I can do it, but that is not what we're going to ask our staff to do. It's not a safe thing to do. It's dangerous. And so we want to limit the number of times that they actually have to do that. It's just logistically difficult. And so absolutely, it's super steep. And, there's going to be, those are the parameters. And yet, we still want it sustainable. It is still a focal point of Indiana. And if we screw it up, people will know for a long time. And it's really important. It brings up another point, that we had a long meeting partly because of this, and I really appreciated it. Because if it was staff or I don't know, even council driven, I'm a little tired of that Vinegar Hill. I'd maybe like to just pave it over. But we had a long discussion about it because community members came in and were like, hey, this is important. So when we're thinking about how we change up our committee structure, I think it's super important to have a lot of opportunities for folks to come in and voice what should be our overall goal. And that means, I don't know if we can do all that in one night. Can't do that. We had a 2-hour meeting and we had, it was nearly a $10 million meeting. And it's in addition to this. So I have a real worry about our committee, a new committee structure not being able to give room for that. So all that said, Public Works is super busy, and Nicole mentioned it at our work session. If you look at the street operations report all over town there, they've been painting, lots of patches coming in and out. They're on my street, patching. So thanks to them, we see them, give them some right away. I'll chat a little bit about if you look at the wastewater treatment operations report, there's there's some fixing things that are happening, nothing in particular, but I'll come back to that in a bit. I do have a motion on it. Yeah, I'm gonna get to engineering. Parks Department has also been very busy. It's exciting to have a Parks Department. One of the key things they've been doing is working on the tree grates, and I know Luke's been really involved in that. It's been a learning process, but it's working. It's exciting to have a Parks Department to do it. Like all of this work we've been talking about for a long time, including Vinegar Hill, for like 10 years, wanted to do more. And most of the time we were operating with the Public Works staff -2 and no Parks Department. So even though it might feel a little bit like same as it ever was, we actually are in a very different position right now, and that includes these tree grates. We would never have asked our Public Works Department to do these tree grates 5 years ago, because they would have been like, no. I'm going to move on to the I want to get to the motion for the capital improvement plan and the wastewater treatment plant.
We want to have the streets and sidewalks ordinance.
Yes, I'm gonna get to that one first, and I'll come back.
Towards the end of your.
Sure, I give a quick update there. The COVID-19 collaboration continues. I'm not sure what that is. So Roland is largely managing that, and I think Nicole's involved in that. The program is expanding, in short. More and more people are interested in wastewater sampling. If you look at this month's report, you'll notice there's a small tick. He does a really good job of giving the entire length of the pandemic, and so you can see it's a small tick relative, but it is a tick. People should be careful. So those are
and they're testing now for 2 different flus and RSV, but they're still negative at this point.
They've still been negative. So that work actually contributes to the viability of our capital improvement plan, which is there. So I'm going to come to the motion. There's a number of pieces that our wastewater treatment plan have identified that need to be upgraded. Our engineer, Stifler McGraw, I think you have that big report, and I've got a hard copy. The upshot is it's around $9 million. The funds for that so the motion we're looking at tonight is not to fund that $9 million. It is to engage with Stifler McGraw, our engineers, that funding will be asked for eventually, and what that will likely come from is either a loan, or Kyle. We're not too afraid of the loan, partly because the wastewater treatment plant just cycled out of their previous 20-year loan. So in terms of our budgeting, it is not a horrible thing for a treatment center to take on some debt. And in fact, it makes sense for us to take on some debt, because if we have a lot of cash, and we have a little bit of extra cash, it's harder for us to get other loans for like a Penvest loan, which we're going to be looking for the larger sewer project of the Act 527. So this motion right now is for I'm calling it like a facelift for our wastewater treatment plant. One of the things that's going to be fixed, and you can see it in the report, is some screens to keep the towels out and the turtles and the snakes. Well, okay.
Well, this is the second motion we're talking about.
This is the second motion. And it is to adopt and execute an engineering services agreement with Stifler McGraw for capital improvements plan regarding the wastewater treatment plant.
Is that and or?
That's what the words say. Is that the one you meant to read? Just for clarity.
Yes.
One of the committee.
Stifler McGraw for a capital improvement plan.
That agreement is attached to your package.
Oh, two documents there. Sorry for that confusion.
To execute that plan.
That you sent out early, that's the plan.
Or in that plan. So how do we do that? We have to sign an agreement with Stiff McGraw to walk us through that plan.
And quote financially along the way.
Yeah, and then we'll find the financial funding and.
Essentially authorizes Stipton McGraw to proceed with it.
So we have to pay them a bunch of money for them to come up with a plan to pay them a bunch of money.
Yep.
This is a preliminary thing. They have to do the actual.
The others, Stipton McGraw won't be doing the construction.
What we need, but they have to do the specific engineering for each item as they go through.
That makes more sense.
Is that they will then proceed to finish.
And this will be very intensive to tell you exactly what you need. So you're gonna pay us to figure out the minutia. Gotcha. I do have a question then. I didn't, can. So in there, they talked about a rate increase. Okay. No, I'm not complaining. More my point was actually, would it make sense to make it more than what they suggested to cover the bare minimum? To have the ability to cash flow some of this in the future, rather than having to take out a $6 million loan?
Increase, we have to increase gradually. Otherwise we get into trouble with what happened last time with the PUC, we get, we'll get like frozen. We can't increase a certain amount. We can't increase for a certain number of years, which is what ended up happening with us. Because no one increased for a very long time, but we have to increase to a certain amount because right now, because our rates are so low and they're not really covering what we have, we cannot get grants. Like there's certain things that we can't get access to because we are not actually charging people what it costs to run the plant right now.
We can't qualify, that might hurt our Penvest loan to even qualify for it because we have
So
the
in order
funding.
to get a better loan rate and have opportunity for more grants, we have to increase the rates to actually cover what it costs to run.
More for the service we're giving, we won't need the loans as much either. Interesting.
We're probably gonna do phase 1 and 2 together because the head works and then move on.
$2.57 or something like that.
Examples of what it, could be. But if we get the grant, then we wouldn't have to.
And was the equivalent of covering the loan payment? Was that what that was representing?
Again, it says in there too, that's if no grant, that's with no grants or.
$1 million by reason.
I don't think we're gonna do it this time. I'm more referring to the next time this comes up,
Well,
which I realize is a little trickier with government, but
but your point is correct. Whether or not we increase rates this time, or like this year for this project, probably, I would imagine Nicole's gonna suggest it, and then probably continue small increases for the larger sewer project.
Here, just to get their approval to increase the rates anyways.
But if you don't raise your rates, then they don't give you grants. But if you want to raise your rates, it takes a year. That sounds like government.
Long time.
Yeah. It costs you like, I don't know, $250,000. And
Not always a good reason, but it is.
Anything else before we vote on this? All in favor of this motion, signify by saying yes.
We're spending money,
We're spending,
at least leading to lots of money, leading to lots of money. Yeah, you're right.
It's not, you're not spending 9 million based on this, but
no,
But your point is taken. This is sort of an agreement. Like, this is the plan and.
right.
it'll cost us money. Okay, roll call, no harm. Yes.
Ford. Frick. Herring. Kratza. Lancaster. Noel. Smith. Steelman. Taylor.
Our other motion, I think, has already been advertised. This came out of Public Works. However, it was not a unanimous decision on Public Works. The ordinance is to clear up some confusion from code, since within Public Works, we generally granted people exceptions to grow kind of what they wanted in the right of way. And so that was, you know, the why about it. I think we're always trying to increase and make folks want to live here. And there's currently a real movement to thinking, hey, these right of ways are these great places, and maybe they can be beautified somehow. And there's one resident who has done so quite a bit. You know, you've probably seen the house. There's lots of sunflowers. It's very, very beautiful. It is also, and I've seen actually folks come take pictures in front of it, like say, hey, look where I am. It is absolutely, but it's my report, so you can talk about it later. The issue has been with that particular house that sometimes the sunflowers are leaning into the sidewalk, which is a problem. Also, they've been leaning into the street, which is also a problem. And folks have said, because it's so thick there, folks are a little bit worried about security. Somebody could be hiding there at night and sort of jumping out. So these are the concerns that have come up. So the ordinance, if you've read it, you probably may have already talked about it when you advertised it, satisfies those things. My point that I would encourage you to vote no, despite the fact that you would yes advertise it. I wasn't here, so I couldn't tell you. We already have ordinance to address all of these things. If something is obstructing the right of way, we can ask them to not obstruct them. If something is leaning into the street from your street, we can ask them to not do that. It's a public safety, right? If there's something on the street that somebody's like, that's not safe. Somebody could and you go by and say, I agree. We can address that, and we can ask that homeowner to take care of that.
Current ordinance prohibits planting anything but grass and trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And this one will allow for,
Will be allowed to plant stuff, but they have to at least follow some directions. Right now, there is no ordinance. They're allowed nothing. Approval, yes.
So they don't.
They don't.
Because they hadn't come to the borough to do it, because they come to Public Works, and Public Works says yes every time. So we asked the manager to say yes every time, and that's been the practice. It has not been the practice they've had to come here, because the borough has our committee has said this is what we want to do. So I'm going to vote against it, because this is essentially an ordinance for a single household.
It's allowing, right, it's allowing the people that do it without getting approval.
There's nobody that does that. A lot? And is it a big problem?
From you, right, the Druselics have those hosta that are there, that technically, I don't think they did. But technically those would be out of ordinance currently, but in the new ordinance, they're legit because.
Problem?
they're
Not grass, they're not a problem. Why have we never cited them before?
they're not legal.
Why, those houses have been there long before I was in Public Works saying you should approve everything.
The idea is to make the ordinance conform with practice.
So I'm gonna vote against this, because I think we're overregulating our residents. You know, why am I here? I'm here to try to get people to like it here and to live here, and want to be here. This ordinance empowers our code to have increased negative interactions. Just let me finish. I don't think our code department is the best ambassador. And so to give code more sort of more direction, to have more negative interactions with folks that are just trying to make the town beautiful, I think is a problem. I think we can handle this without an ordinance.
That's simply a misinterpretation. This tells code that they don't have to do anything anymore.
I do.
Under Public Works.
But now it's code.
Yes. So, and the only reason code got stuck with it was because Dave Fairman would call, or whoever was the street crew supervisor would call and say, these need cut down. Nobody else would do it. The street crew weren't going to go and enforce that. So Code was the only one. Code said, all right, we'll send them letter. We have the software system. We'll do it. So Code was doing the Public Works Department a favor by helping them enforce it, but they were never, that's not their job to enforce the streets and sidewalks. It is Public Works. Now, our Parks Department, our supervisor has access to the software system. He will be maintaining these letters. Again, I think that by rewriting this, it sets for the whole borough a policy that lets the people, one, plant that. They just need to maintain it in a safe and organized way.
This is where, like, I can't tell you how much money I make because people don't. I mean, I get called in all the time to completely redo landscapings that people thought they could maintain and can't. Like, even the one that we're talking about with the sunflowers, those sunflowers were too tall. The sunflowers were getting to the road and they're getting into the sidewalk. And when we were told the last time we talked about this, if they're in the road, you have to call the cops. That is what was said. Then they were issued they had to go to the magistrate to be punished for violation of this. There was no mechanism of which to take care of it in the short term. So basically they could go all summer with a violation until their turn at the magistrate office to then be levied a fine, which doesn't actually fix the problem to begin with. So I think there's going to be a lot of unforeseen consequences from this that I don't understand how that makes it any better to be in the borough, because people don't want to have to come and get permission to plant something that doesn't feel like that big of a burden. And I realize that but
Like,
what I'm saying is that permission isn't arduous. It's come, ask, get told yes, go home. Like, that isn't.
action to plant something, to trim something. We have, people just don't do it or don't, it's allowing everybody to just have the same rules and functions.
Have maintain, have weeds growing that are invasive or noxious, not have a clue what the difference.
Otherwise, we're choosing who to enforce and who not to. And I think that's a stickier situation to be in. Like deciding, okay, these houses are okay, or these are not okay. You're making decisions not based on what it actually says and what our laws are and our ordinances, but based on the people that are working.
Actually take care of it when they don't, because there wasn't before.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Or stating it has to be, like, for instance, the sunflowers were way above the 36 inches. Now we have something in writing saying you can't do this.
District judge.
No, it says that we can come in and do stuff.
Okay, they did end it. I apologize. Then I did.
That's paraphrasing.
Because that wasn't in it
It
originally.
basically says the borough has the right to come in and cut shit down.
Where does it say that?
It's in red. I don't know where. It's in there somewhere. It's in one of these.
Okay. What letter? What letter? There any other, so we're not. Sorry, so we're not charging them for it like we would for a tree? Well, hey, look, you want to make an ordinance that's supposed to cover what is supposed to happen. It should be in there.
Knowledge.
Right now, there is something that is effective one. You have grass or you get permission to do it.
Word.
So that's
That's what I heard in my head. You said that. Sorry.
I mean, and if we have, that was my big complaint when we talked about this originally. I did apologize. I did miss that was added. But it still doesn't necessarily offer like, okay, now you're gonna charge me for it. Where does it say that? Right? It does say that unless I'm mistaken in the tree ordinance. If you won't take down your tree, we will charge you. Right? I do believe that's in there. And so I suggest we amend this to have similar language to keep it consistent. If you're gonna have something that is out of code, we will forcibly fix it for you and then charge you for it. I think that will keep people in code in line better, quite frankly. They don't want to pay for somebody to have to come in and cut down their sunflowers, because if you hired me to do it, there wouldn't be any left. Right? So,
Here's those shrubbery plants and similar objects have been now excluded from obstructions. So would they not be included anyway?
According to our old, we don't have according to the ordinance, they're allowed nothing. People come in and plant this stuff there. And this will give us the right to say, it has to be maintainable.
But if a shrub or plant isn't included in obstruction, am I missing something?
No, we took, that used to be in there. We're taking that out.
So are you trying to make a
That
motion to
used
amend
be- you
the wording?
weren't allowed to have that in the right of way. We're removing that so you can have that in the right of way.
Okay.
I assume you asked Brenda this. Did you bring up the fact that you're not allowed to put a fence in certain places? I can't remember what it's called, but there's a line of sight issue where they won't let you put a fence, for example, too close to a corner. Is that in here?
Vehicle operation site distance along roadways or impede the use of public sidewalks.
So they could go to somebody and say, hey, you can't do that because of those line of sight right away. Okay.
Do you want to add a reference to the fee structure and then add the fees?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably where it would show up is under the fee schedule.
So does a motion need to be made to amend this wording?
Question.
Seeing this thing, and I don't see any issues at all with this new wording. It just makes perfectly good sense to me. He hasn't said anything to contradict that.
Is an amendment to this to add a reference to the fee structure or
To make
fee
it match the
schedule.
tree.
And then the fee structure would have a,
And remove something, they will get billed and here's where they will get billed.
Which is.
In accordance with your fee structure.
Verbiage for trees. I think that's in there. So that would be to basically copy the. Yeah.
That's not listed.
Tell somebody to do something and they don't do it.
What do we do with grass?
Us or do thought we add it to their lien or anything else. We take a shed down, we put a lien, we lean it. We file,
But is that in the ordinance?
no, we just we're doing the
Standard
work,
practice.
so it's standard practice that. Yeah.
Use of the word verbiage bothers the hell out of me. It's wording.
Wording from the tree ordinance, I think would.
Practice for the trees, et cetera. So if this is continuing that same way.
Yes, I do. I'm confrontational. If I wanted to then fight one of those other ones, could I? Because it doesn't say in the ordinance you're gonna charge me, so you did that on your own. Thanks so much.
We can add it.
But we're going through the ordinances and the zoning anyway. Should it be in there? Pat, that would be a you question.
Yeah, that's a significant change. That'll cost money.
Yes, it will.
Is that a thing that well, they're saying it's not in some of the other ones, but should it be?
You can add it to the fee schedule.
Oh, there.
But the question is, what he's asking in the motion, well, I don't even know if it's a motion to amend, you haven't gotten that far yet. During discussion, it has not gotten that far. But to the point, in this ordinance, if you're going to refer to the fee structure, you should have language that says so. It's cleaner, because then that way they can't argue it as they're saying. But the downside to that is you're gonna have to re-advertise this ordinance with the amendment. If this body wants to do an amendment.
Let me just be clear, this motion has been made to adopt an ordinance amendment.
Right, so
Chapter 400.
Right.
Any change requires a motion.
So we're in discussion, we're in discussion.
Right.
Right, so you,
It did come up to it.
Right.
No actual fine, wasn't there? Or no, there was no actual limit, that's what it was. There's no actual height limit for mowing. Everyone. Something was missing from the mowing ordinance.
Yeah, we
I
put
thought initially it was,
put the height
but it was the
limits.
height, right? So that was different. So.
That you will pay, you will have to reimburse if we have to do it for you.
Borough can remove certain obstructions and we don't refer to it though? I mean,
The top of my head, I don't know, other than grass cutting and, I mean, a lot of the stuff we've been doing lately, we've been getting individual agreements, like taking down the sheds and stuff like that. Those are individual agreements.
Work, we get an agreement with the property owner that says garage, oh, and by the way, we're going to lien your property for the amount that it costs us.
We're also gonna do pretty massive ordinance overhaul in the next, I don't know how long, I've lost track now, but it's imminently.
Yes,
Oh,
we just got we put the RFP out, so we're picking the.
We might as well do each one, right, though, as we're putting them in.
This now, and there's I mean, it's more than one, but it's not thousands of people who this will affect. And then we can go through and we can get them all because the point of the whole overhaul is to get it, at least partially get everything consistent. And so then we can make sure the trees and the grass and the shrubs all match at some point, and it saves us money and time, because then that's just one announcement, like, and one advertisement.
But it's also
And paste.
going in and planting sunflowers, for example, tomorrow. So what is, another part of that is what's the hurry of passing it now? If we're saying, we generally speaking, think it is missing a few points.
Well, right now we think it's missing up. I mean, she
A
doesn't
point,
like it,
sure, but
and
it's a
missing-
fairly, I
But
don't,
it's-
again, how major a point is that, Pat?
That rise to the level that we're going to take action. You know, because you have the person that you're gonna call and say, hey, you're not in compliance. They go out and they fix it. On their own, we don't ever happen.
I mean, it did just happen. No, they fixed it. I noticed they cut a lot of sunflowers down, but it was too high.
So, you know, it's gonna be, by the time you worry about this fee, you're gonna be on probably the third phase of the issue, because the first time you're gonna say, hey, come into compliance, fix whatever we're asking to fix. If they do that, problem solved, we move on.
Yep.
They don't do it, then now we cite them. Or our crew says, we're gonna go out and we're gonna do it. And then that's when you have a choice. You're gonna go to the magistrate and cite them, or you lien it, or you do whatever you're gonna do.
The expense to cut down some weeds really wasn't major.
We're getting it.
We added it,
So we're fining them, whatever, say they get to $100 in fines, it doesn't cost our crew, they go out there for an hour and cut it down. It doesn't cost them $100 to cut that down. We have to pay them here, they're here anyway for 8 hours.
Cause
yeah, there's no shortage of things they could do it.
and Luke, you enjoy a devil's advocate, so hypothetically, it could be that in fact, the tree one is wrong. In fact, you're better off to be silent on it and just have it in your fee structure. And when we do this review through these people who are professionals at looking at code, they're like, yeah, no, the tree one is wrong. And so by making this change, we're gonna make it twice.
I'm not actually against that, because it does make it sound like the mafia's gonna come break your kneecaps when you take your tree down. I mean, it was pretty harsh. Because I brought that up right when I came on council and they changed it a little bit. It was pretty harsh sounding. We're gonna do this and charge you 125%.
Before, I want,
If she wanna call the question, that's a privileged motion, so.
great, let's vote.
Oh. Yes.
Sorry, I'm not actually trying to stall. Move to adopt an ordinance amending chapter 400 streets and sidewalks.
All in favor? Oh, no, this is an ordinance.
It's an ordinance.
So,
Roll call.
roll call, yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Colazo, DeBowser,
No.
Ford, Frick, Herring, Kratza, Noel, Taylor.
Called.
Shoot, oh, your name was covered up, Lancaster. Sorry, my paper covered it. And Taylor?
Yes.
Yes.
It's still my report, so I get to ask a question. In the execution of this new ordinance, Nicole, if somebody's current plants that have been there for a long time. I'm thinking about my neighbor Linda that you mentioned that has things that are within a foot of the curb and has for maybe 35 years and are maybe more than 36 inches. Since we just passed this ordinance, is she now gonna get a letter from Parks that she has to cut down the shrubage she's had for the last 20 years?
A letter because it's not in compliance now.
No.
So.
Always let her pass, but it is not in compliance. It's not grass and it's in the right of way.
Reason we send out letters too is by complaints. It's not like our code doesn't go out and look for this stuff because again, that's not our code officer's job. It doesn't follow the streets, does not fall under their jurisdiction. Only time they go out is if we get complaints.
Well, it's fine. I just think we put a lot of residents in, I hadn't even thought about people who have had these things in their right of way for a long time. They are not gonna get caught in this. Somebody complains about it. Maybe they didn't like it.
I'm trying to think across town, the majority of them are under 36 inches, right? That's 3 feet. So, I mean, Linda's is under three feet, Jeff Rakes is under 3 feet.
It's less than 1 foot from the curb. They are. A lot of people are gonna have problems with what they have currently planted. That's all I have.
What does anybody, so Mayor, what did Vinegar Hill look like in the 60s or the 70s?
The steps weren't, hey, man.
Because how was the landscaping maintained? Is my point, I guess. Do we make it steeper sometime in the last 30 years or?
Oh, not steeper.
And the steps are a different layout.
Yeah.
It used to just be straight up. Now you have that well that juts either side.
I noticed the big.
For like from 1880 on, I guess is my question.
Back in your 20s when you were.
But prior to like, I grew up there. I don't ever really remember it really being maintained. It was like trees and.
Much on its own.
Did you go sledding down there? I think we should have 2 chutes for racing.
Unofficially, water balloons being thrown from the top of the steps onto Water Street may have happened once or twice.
Hardcore old timers tell me they used to bike down those steps.
Well, George would tell the city
Basically,
to do
the
that.
garbage can would end up flying down the steps too. I'm not sure why that happened. The wind probably did. What was the catalyst of change to begin with?
Well, when they redid the steps. What had happened was the retaining wall was like this, leaning onto Water Street. And so to fix that, then they put in the new steps with like that well at the top was never there. Where you can go right or left. It was just straight. Yeah. Parking, that street was a main parking lot for downtown. People that work at Brody's or Troutman's or wherever, they park there. You couldn't park in front of my childhood home.
The block? Where they?
What?
Dangerous.
Complicating something that was solved in the 50s. It can be solved by some country. Yeah.
Metal railing. And we would actually, as kids, we would rappel, we would tie onto that with rope, unofficial, and just kind of screw around down in those woods and trees and.
There was a fence. I feel like when I first.
It wasn't a fence.
There was some
It was
kind
a
barrier.
green, it was like a green metal pipe type railing.
But say you went.
And you
rolling
could
down,
slide
that
under it.
might stop you though. Roll in.
There was nothing there at the bottom. I'm talking up on 7, up at the top, so.
All right. Are there any other questions? Does Shade Tree have anything for us?
Yes,
Motions?
it's done.
It's done.
It
We voted.
was the engineering services. And then reversed.
One of the things we discussed is it's tying back into what's going on with 7th Street up along Philadelphia. Fall planning this year will be in the 1000 block of Philadelphia. Fall, spring, they don't know which, they haven't decided when they're gonna be doing tree planting on South Seventh Street between Philadelphia and Gompers. Right now, sidewalks are being repaired there. There may be some planting because Josh at the 700 shop said he'd be willing to buy the trees to have them put in if the borough put them in for him. He'll pay for the cost because he'd like to get the trees back in. So, there may be a tree or two going in there because the sidewalk by his house, his business was redone. So it's got the proper place for the tree to go in and all. And he'd like to get that in as soon as possible. So we may see a tree go in there. A long-term planning is, we're looking at 1300 block of Philadelphia and a 500 block of Locust. There was also a discussion at length regarding the one property owner on South 7th Street, right on the edge of Gompers, prior trees that have gone in there. He went out, we don't know if he did it, but sometime in the middle of the night, the trees disappeared. They were chopped down, and there was concern that if we go to work on this project, what if this person decides they don't want a tree in front of their business and it disappears somehow? And what can we do about that? So there was a long discussion in Shade Tree about this.
Well, if the police see him cut it down.
The trouble is being seen, yeah.
It's cutting down any other tree without a permit.
You'd find, right?
I mean,
Commonwealth, they're trimming.
There's been long-term discussion regarding, I guess, this property owner and things going on.
Bumpers that we said.
Seventh golfers, yeah. The Ren building. And I think they said that they had involved the people from the borough had talked with them about this. Because I remember when the tree disappeared, it was very noticeable. Just like now, the trees are all gone there and it's very noticeable. It's
Question for Shade Tree.
less trees on South 7th Street than there were before.
Have to specifically buy his own trees. Isn't the theory that these trees coming out would be put back in, or is it because he wants to put back in sooner than later?
Redo the entire sidewalk by his business instead of just, he's doing this on his own, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's some funding for that, and I know, but it takes time and there's a lot of trees and.
The idea that he wants to see it happen and he could help us out with it. He said he would.
How long before those roots affect that new sidewalk? Or we don't know? We just wait and see.
I don't know, but they purposely made the openings for the trees a lot bigger. And the trees, I believe the arborist, he wasn't at the meeting, but he's supposedly looking at things that won't disrupt the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Like-
Reminded me to call him.
Yeah, but they're taking this all in consideration, because there are places where the sidewalks get all out of shape because the opening for the trees aren't as big as they should be, and the trees planted aren't the right trees to put in those areas.
Go up, trees go down, trees go up, trees go down, trees go up. trees go-
Goes into that. Sometimes utilities, sometimes they plant, there's a tree that then.
Really looking at trying to do this so it's done right, that we're not taking things up and down all the time.
As far as the business owner whose tree is missing, is it affecting his business in some way? I mean, there must be a reason.
Yeah, they don't want the trees there because you can't see the businesses. It's a bunch of small businesses with signs that are on the building, so they can't.
You
see.
kind of wonder about,
Yeah.
are we helping our community by putting an obstruction in front of a business that might be thriving or not?
The
Um,
trees, the ones they had there before, and I'm trying to remember, we had a discussion about it. There were 3 or 4 on each side of the road. Now there's gonna be like 2 to 3. There's not gonna be as many trees as there were before. To make that, tie it in from Gompers right up, so when you come in, you start seeing Gompers and you go right up the hill to the Vinegar Hill, and it has some continuity to it. Because it is a place everybody sees. But that's what we discussed. No.
Is there an opportunity to do a similar cost sharing program for people that plant trees that we did with sidewalks.
Shade Tree has that 40, ARP gave them that 40 to plant more trees. They just need to come up with a game plan of where they're planting and that. So they have some funding to plant trees.
Is there a list of trees to choose from?
Yeah.
There's always been.
I didn't. Haven't played it.
Maintained up to date. Meaning, because they like to, I believe the crux of that was trying to have specific quantities of a variety of trees, not necessarily just, you want an oak tree, you know, get an oak tree. It's not, I don't think it was designed to be quite that simple.
Okay. Nicole.
Okay, the goats are gone. They left today. So the process has started. Ryan and I did meet with, Earthcraft and to start the conversation, and obviously what came out of, Public Works is, so we're running some ideas of coming up with a group. We talked about bringing it to Shade Tree and running it from that meeting, but again, we could do it from Public Works. So that's. Huh? There was some talk there.
Us.
Trajan Jones, our planner, just to let you guys know that, you know, for the steering committee with the comp plan, he's gonna be out this weekend. He's been at every event. He was just over at IUP's event. September's up, there's a lot happening with the NAF Festival, the Slice of Pizza, event, Third Thursday event, along with the Meet the Hawks is rescheduled. So all that stuff's happening in September, and then he will be there with, you know, the documents that he's been getting feedback. We met with potential, there was probably about 12. We had a Zoom meeting with potential people applying for the RFP for the ordinance rewrite. They had questions. So it was a good Zoom meeting. So he'll be out and about, so getting the public's input, which he has been getting a lot of. So then that steering committee will be coming up again. That's it.
Trajan is I've heard from two different people who were like, hey, I saw this guy talk about the borough, it was really cool. And one of the women who was at our meeting last time and was like, yeah, met this guy at the and they said we had these meetings. So the work, I know it's probably hard work tabling and talking to folks, but you can let them know it's working. People are more engaged in government here, and that is huge. It's so hard for us to do. So it's huge. Truly. So we can give them some good feedback.
Hey, Chief.
Sir, thank you. I have no calls for police activity report this month by the way that August ended and the holiday. That'll be available to you on the at the work session. Indiana Borough prepares for a very busy weekend. We have the Northern Appalachian Folk Festival that's going to start setting up Friday morning. We have an Indiana high school football game that's Friday evening. We have an IUP football game that's Saturday afternoon. I believe that it's parents? Hall of Fame weekend. Don't have that. So there's a lot of activity that's going to be in Indiana Borough. And so I would just ask that our friends and neighbors drive slow, expect detour routes, Water Street, Church Street, School Street, allow extra time to get from point A to point B because extra time will be needed. And we're already communicating with the school district on how this may impact buses traveling to and from school on Friday. So there'll be substantial detours that's going to disrupt Friday's business traffic. But this happens every year. So the goal of the police department and the public works department is to mitigate the amount of stress on the community that those closures are going to cause. And we're all working together already, including Manager Cepas on that. And then finally, this may be just a bit premature, but the police department's engaging in a billboard project to bring a positive message and a recruitment campaign to police service in Indiana County. I've been told that 3 billboards will be placed at various locations around the Indiana community, or they're already in place, but they're going to bear a message from the police. And there are going to be several different uniforms represented on the billboard. And so those should be hung within 12 to 17 days. So I'm excited. I've seen what I believe the final project will be. I think it will bring, certainly it's professional and, it is worthy of the effort that we at Indiana Borough are putting out and our partners. So excited to have that done. If for some reason that gets erected before 12 to 14 days, I wanted you to be aware so that you weren't surprised by that. It is a combined effort. It's a combined effort with county law enforcement, and it's part of the grant that we at Indiana Borough applied for with our partners. Overall, it had a recruitment and retention piece to the grant, and that's what this project's going to be funded by. And then just really to echo, and I didn't expect to say this, but to echo Manager Cephas's comment, Trajan Jones, not only is he present at these things, but he is passionate about what he does and about Indiana Borough. And he deserves a lot of credit for that because, I've noticed that he's someone that I want to talk to when I go to events. And I would assume that everybody else in the community would want to talk to him too, just by the passion and the excitement that he's putting forward. So just a kudos to Manager Cephas's staff.
To report, we did have a negotiating session with the police and we're still moving forward on that. So hopefully we'll have something to report in the near future.
You all received the IUP report, soon. Want to remind people that the first thing coming up on that is next Monday is the September 11th memorial at here in the last 2 weeks.
I'm still stuck up on Vinegar Hill. I just can't remember what that looked like. That's what I was thinking. There's gotta be pictures somewhere. And Pat's exactly right. It was just the steps were different. And so it's just hard to visualize, but it was more of a tree kind of thing. Free for all, probably better at, but nothing to report tonight. Thanks.
New business? We have a motion to adjourn.
Had to be a free for all. I don't think there was any.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of stories of people sledding off that, so I can't imagine it was heavily